The bright side of addiction is recovery. In this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, we are going to look back on a conversation that I had with an old friend. His name, Freebo, and he has decades of continuous long-term recovery. He's an accomplished studio and touring musician. In fact, he played with Bonnie Raitt for many, many years. And as a person in long-term recovery, he's all about service to others. He wears his recovery on his heart. Here's a quick clip from today's podcast.
I've gotten so many gifts from the gifts that I have and that I've developed. And, when you give, you will receive. If you give to receive, it won't happen. But if you give to give, you receive. It's just one of those universal truths. So that's what's been happening to me. I've been receiving all these gifts from the universe because I've been showing up. I've been showing up for me. And I think that's what sobriety has done for me. It's allowed me to really actualize my full self. And I feel better than I've ever felt. I'm more joyful than I've ever been. I'm more grateful than I've ever been.
Freebo will share some amazing insights to one day at a time recovery and his journey along the path. Now, if you are in recovery, or maybe you know someone who is, or simply you want to know more about the recovery process, or maybe you're a bit concerned about someone you know or love, this is the podcast for you, as we carry the message of hope and the promise of recovery. And a reminder that you can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. And iconic actor Dick Van Dyke, one of the first celebrities to talk publicly about his recovery from alcoholism, way back in the 70s. He'll share his thoughts and insights on putting recovery first. I'm Neil Scott, host of Recovery Coast to Coast. Our website is recoverycoasttocoast, spelled out, .org, O-R-G. You'll find all of our podcasts there. Following 15 years of nightly broadcasting on iHeartRadio in Seattle, we now have upgraded to a national podcast available to anyone at any time. And it features interviews with everyday people in recovery, as well as clinicians, authors, and a lot of recovering celebrities and newsmakers who offer that promise of hope and the reality of recovery. Plus, we share well-vetted resources for individuals, families, and friends. We invite you to enjoy our podcast and to share it with your friends as well. Recovery is an American way of life. A reminder, our email address, if you'd like to reach out, we'd love to hear from you. recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Recovery Coast to Coast is supported by Sundown M Ranch, one of America's oldest, least expensive, and most successful treatment programs. Now, a lot of people ask me about treatment centers and their success rates. Well, they only want their loved ones to go where they can be guaranteed that they'll be completely cured. Give me a break. Addiction is a chronic, debilitating, progressive disease that will only get worse as time goes by. Addiction treatment is not a guaranteed fix. Neither is treatment for diabetes, cancer, or heart disease. But like those illnesses, it can be successfully managed, assuming you follow the path prescribed, assuming you use the tools provided. Same with addiction. An inpatient addiction treatment program is not the end-all, be-all. 30, 60, 90 days and you're good to go for the rest of your life? No. Chronic disease does not work like that. It can be successfully managed, however. Good treatment centers, including Sundown M Ranch, will get you on the road to recovery. They will arrest the disease. They'll give you the tools necessary to manage your recovery, hopefully for the rest of your life. But there are no guarantees, and if a treatment center says any different, stay away from them. Sundown M Ranch has been helping people find and maintain long-term recovery for nearly 55 years. Man, that's a long time. Their staff's second to none, and their continuing care program gives individuals the best possible chance at a lifetime free of alcohol and other drugs. The philosophy of treatment at Sundown is simple: arrest the disease, provide the needed support in the recovery process, and to help guide each individual back to a healthy and productive life. Treatment is 12-step centered. They provide detox, education, individual therapy, family therapy, group therapy, an introduction to self-help communities, and continuing care planning and recovery enhancement. Know someone who's in trouble with alcohol or any other drug? Well, know that Sundown M Ranch has been successfully treating patients for nearly 55 years. Sundown.org. Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins. Care for some coffee? Well, join me as I share my conversation about recovery and music with the amazing Freebo, who has been the bass player for Bonnie Raitt for years and who now has an amazing career as a solo artist and a studio musician. Let's listen. Joining us in this segment is an old friend. He's been on the program before. Always great to see him. Always great to catch up with him. Freebo. Freebo is a world-renowned bassist. He was with Bonnie Raitt for many, many years. He is a musician in his own right, and he is right on. Freebo, good to see you again.
Hi, Neil. How are you?
I'm doing great. For folks who are unfamiliar with your story, you've been in recovery, what, 25, 26 years?
25 years in January, yep.
Yeah, newcomer, huh? Keep coming back. It works.
Yeah, one day at a time, for real. I mean, I was just going to quit smoking pot, many years ago.
That was the main drug for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did that every day. I mean, I drank and did other stuff, but pot was a thing that I would do by myself. It really changed my consciousness or my unconsciousness. I liked it, and it worked for me. Everything has a curve, and
it was your friend for a while.
Well, every curve has an apex.
Yeah.
I just went a bit past it. That's all. And I was just going to quit smoking pot, really. And I started going to some meetings. I started hearing things like cross addiction, and then I heard a very interesting term. I love bumper stickers, and the bumper sticker that really hit me was living life on life's terms. I went, oh my God, I haven't been living life on life's terms since I'm 13 years old. So I thought, okay, I'll give it 30 days. I won't do anything for 30 days, and went to a meeting every day as suggested, and I just started hearing more and more things, and the higher power deal. And as the 30 days approached, I just found that I was more and more clear, and then I found out that my creativity was. Now, I thought maybe I would lose my creativity. I found just the opposite is true. And not only that, but I began to finish things that I started. So it just felt good. And I guess I got to be in a pink cloud. And I started going to some musician meetings, which was interesting. And a guy named Buddy Arnold got a hold of me.
Sure.
From the Musician's Assistant Program. And one day Buddy calls me and says, Freebs, it's Buddy Arnold. Hi, Buddy. Hey, Freebs, we got this group. They got this group down at the Union, and I think you ought to come. I hear you're sober. I said, yeah, I've been sober for a couple months. Yeah, Freebs, I think you ought to come down to the group. We talk about our feelings. Come down, So I did once a week at Tuesday mornings, and it was wonderful because we would talk about feelings, and that's the one thing that I think getting loaded is about, or being sober is about. Getting loaded is about staying away from your feelings as much as possible, not feeling them. And I found the feelings are a window to my soul, to what's really going on. So to not only talk about the feelings, but to feel them and see what's going on and find that, no feeling is going to kill me. As a matter of fact, the more I feel it, the more I find out what my truth is. The feeling will eventually dissipate, and I'll get to see what signal it's giving me. Literally, I just had no intention of, getting 25 years. It literally happened one day at a time. And just, I wouldn't change it for the world because my life is just so much better.
There's a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, a lot of creative people who have that fear of, if I sober up, if I put the drug away, that I will lose the muse. I will not be able to get in touch with the creativity. And you said it was just the opposite for you. Was it a fear when you stopped that you would lose it?
Yeah, but when you get high, I remember the first time I got high, it was a thrill, and I started hearing music the way I'd never heard it before, and playing was really a trip, and interacting with other musicians, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. But like I said, every curve has an apex, and I think what happens, the way particularly pot works is, I think it changes the synapses in your head, so that what might be a normal connection, like Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Well, with pot you go, Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-E-I-E-I-E-I-E-I-O, oh, oh, boy, da, ba, da, and you're off and running. because the connection doesn't happen the
Yeah.
way it's, because almost like you forget, so something else happens, which is all well and good. The problem is that you keep forgetting, so you don't really follow through with something. At least I wasn't able to. Now when I get an idea,
Mm.
I take that idea and I say, okay, what's the next idea it's going to lead to, and I do follow through. And as I was saying in the songwriting workshop this morning, is one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and you say, okay, what the heck am I talking about here? And you work it out emotionally, but you work it out logically as well. So I find I'm much more clear, and of course I'm the same creative person I was before. It's the same mind, it's just a question of what you do with it. So if you can tap into that creativity from a clearer place, to me it makes a lot of sense, and all I can say is it's working for me.
What was the first year like for you? Was there any desire to go back? I mean, you're a musician. You're in slippery places. A lot
Hmm.
of musicians use a lot of drugs, drink a lot of alcohol, play in places where alcohol is readily available,
Hmm.
drugs readily available. Was that a threat?
Well, oddly enough, not really, because I like to feel good. Even the way I used to get high, I was very controlled. I would really try and reach that apex and stay there. So I don't like to feel bad. I was never one of these people that get like really sloppy drunk or really messed up. So basically, when I got sober, in a way, I got in a pink cloud, and I felt good and I liked it. And I think the program really helped me a
Mm,
lot. The fellowship,
yep.
knowing other people in there, going into the rooms, seeing what the recovery was like, listening to the stories, relating them to my own stories, seeing these wonderful examples of people getting back on track, including myself. And it just exhilarated me. So, in a way, it's like that pink cloud was more of a high. So when I get back with my friends and stuff, who are drinking or using, it was I could kind of see where they were going with it, and I could see that it's, oh my God, that used to be me. I'm so glad I'm not there. So in a way, it actually pushed me in a good way to stay away from it, to be around it. And I got to the point, if I was, I could be around somebody who's drinking, but it gets to the point where they're drinking too much and there's no communication. I just have to leave it, not with any judgment. It's just no fun for me.
Mm.
I want to connect to people. So alcohol is a send drug, so it's all well and good to send if you can receive, but if somebody else just sending and they're not going to receive me, that's no fun for me. So I said, okay, see you later, excuse me, I have to go.
How has your life changed?
Wow. I think in short, it's changed because I am more my true self than I've ever been. I feel like I'm fulfilling my potential more than I ever have. I've gotten to the point where when I got sober, I was just starting to write songs. And in my early sobriety, I made the decision to actually take my songs out there and play guitar and walk through the fears of not really being able to sing and not thinking I'm a good singer, and taking singing lessons, taking vocal lessons, and practicing guitar and learning how to finger pick and saying, I'm going to do this. The challenge and the road of becoming a singer songwriter, which actually is probably the most fulfilling thing I've ever done, and writing songs and making my CDs. And ultimately, that's led me to people hearing whatever inspiration is in the song, saying, wow, I really enjoyed your show, but gosh, it was really inspiring. And I'm going, wow, I inspired you? Yes. So, and I started to see that. Now I'm getting into speaking, because where it's taken me is, when I share my story, which is really what in groups, in the meetings, you're just sharing your own story. You're not taking anybody's inventory. You're just sharing your own story. And in sharing my story, it seems to be inspirational to some people, and not just recovery people, but anybody, because the topic that I'm doing in my speaking is heed your calling. If not now, when? I use If Not Now, When, which is the title track of the latest CD. But now I'm heeding my calling. I didn't realize my calling was really taking all of my gifts, which is, and we all have them, but I think that the role of an artist is to look at the world the way we see it, and then to frame that in whatever genre we choose. In this case, it's a song, which comprises music, which is a melody, and the chords and the rhythm and everything that music is comprised of, and the lyric, and the emotion of the lyric and the story. Put it all together and tell our story in that process. And to do that, it's really a noble craft. And to put that all within 4 minutes in a song is a real challenge. So when you succeed in doing that, and you succeed in touching somebody and making them either laugh or cry, or just go, wow, thank you for that. It's the greatest gift you can get. And I've gotten so many gifts from the gifts that I have and that I've developed. And, when you give, you will receive. If you give to receive, it won't happen. But if you give to give, you receive. It's just one of those universal truths. So that's what's been happening to me. I've been receiving all these gifts from the universe because I've been showing up. I've been showing up for me. And I think that's what sobriety has done for me. It's allowed me to really actualize my full self. And I feel better than I've ever felt. I'm more joyful than I've ever been. I'm more grateful than I've ever been. And if I dare say, I'm more humble than I've ever been, which doesn't sound very humble saying it, but I am. I'm just so grateful for the life that I have and the gifts that I've been given and the age that I'm at, and to still be healthy and to be able to do what I do and to enjoy it so much. I just like to say I have the best job in the world.
You're on the road a lot. You perform, you do workshops, you work with the musicians. You were with Bonnie Raitt for many years. You were in the background. You played bass and you complimented her, and then you stepped away to become your own musician. Talk about that transition.
Well, it wasn't easy. I spent a lot of time in the trenches. I felt that I had gaps to fill in my life. I felt that I really hadn't spent the time in the bars, in the trenches, that I really hadn't gotten my chops together, that I'd gone from one stage, immediately skipped a couple stages, and I felt I needed to go back and needed to woodshed and needed to do the work. And I did. And in the process of doing that, I became a better bass player. But all the time as a bass player, I had one of my songs is called my personal GPS. I think we all have, and I use this in my speaking. And the GPS is that inner guidance system that we all have that we're born with, and it's that thing inside intuition that tells us when we're doing the right thing for the right reason for a higher purpose. And when we are doing that, it's silent and smooth, and it's like a horse galloping. But when you're not doing it, uh, the ride is kind of rough, and it speaks to me through what I call a burning, churning, yearning, and you got that churning, and it's a dis-ease, right? Dis-ease, and I found myself pointing and blaming everybody else for my dis-ease until I saw three fingers pointing back at me, and I finally realized what was going on, and whether it's in a recording session or on stage, well, why don't they do that? Well, why don't you play this? Well, why don't I'm kind of, why doesn't everybody do what I want them to do? Because playing the bass, there's only so much I can really affect the music a lot, but only so much. It turns out I had all these ideas and I basically had nowhere to put them. So that's where the idea came to me. Freebs, you got to start writing songs because that's the vessel into which I can put all these ideas. And once I made that decision, which that's what the song "If Not Now When" is about the fear, about the doubt, maybe I can't do it. Oh, what if I'm not a good songwriter? About the regret. I'm 45 years old and I've never written a song. God, I wish I started at 35. But if I don't start now, by the time I'm 55, I'll be in the same damn place. So if I do start now, by the time I'm 55, I'll be that much further along. I did start at 45. I'm way past 55 now, and I'm in a way better place. And I'm now fully expressing myself. And I think that's what we need as human beings. I think that's why we have the gift of language, because we have an innate need to be seen, to express ourselves. And when we're not seen for who we think we are, we feel discounted. So I finally realized that if people aren't seeing me, if I don't think people are seeing me for who I think I am, maybe it's because I'm not showing myself for who I think I am. So now I am showing myself, and I'm getting a wonderful reflection back, and it's great.
Freebo joining us on Recovery Coast to Coast, being here, talking about your story, talking about music, but we want to hear the music. There's a couple of songs I'd like you to do. One of them is called "I Ain't Running." Tell me a little bit about the song, and then we'll do it.
Well, I think the lyrics are pretty self-explanatory in terms of I think we all run from ourselves. We run from our emotions. I think it's fear-based. We're fear-based creatures. I don't think we're innately fear-based creatures. I mean, I think there's some of that in survival mechanism, caveman mentality. There's got to be a certain amount of that, me in my cave, and who's going to take it away? But babies aren't born with fear. There's beautiful light in their eyes. So, but it's put into us bit by bit. We're told what to do, how to do, who to be afraid of, what to take personally. So the song is pretty much about letting it all go and sitting there, and and the running is for me running from myself. You can run with drugs and alcohol, you can run with sex, you can run with busyness, you can run by just, I mean, you can pull what they call geographics, but wherever you go, there you are. So that doesn't work. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's about.
Let's do the song.
Thank you.
I Ain't Running. Here's Freebo.
I ain't running no more. I ain't walking out the door. I ain't running. I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more like so many times before. I ain't running. I ain't running no more. I was caught in my confusion and illusion of my own, paralyzed and staring at the floor. Could use the helping hand, 'cause I couldn't understand what all the fight and suffering was for. But I ain't running no more, I ain't walking out the door. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more like so many times before. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I was running on empty, I was running like the wind. No confronting, I was running out the door. Felt ashamed and I was blaming, just a victim of my own. Now I'm done and I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more, I ain't walking out the door. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more like so many times before. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. All those stories of old, they don't need to be told. I will dry up the tears of my journey, and I'll face all the fears that I've run from for years. But I ain't running no more, I ain't walking out the door. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more like so many times before. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more, I ain't walking out the door. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running no more like so many times before. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. I ain't running, I ain't running no more. No more. No more. No more.
Great song by Freebo, I Ain't Running. You're in recovery, but you also have a couple of dogs that are sober. Tell me about your dogs. Tell me about your sober dogs.
They used to have a big problem. I just couldn't keep them away. I said, hey, what are you not putting in my dog food you used to put in it? And, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, talk about being in the moment. I mean, dogs and animals in general are creatures that are just totally in the moment, which is a place where I'm working very hard to be. I'm really into the work of Eckhart Tolle.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I love A New Earth, and I just might carry the book around with me. It's just it's very well worn, but I think it's great work, and it's all about being in the moment. And because when we're in the moment, that our ego can't be there. It's just what's happening now between you and me. Animals, dogs in particular, are in the moment. Matter of fact, share the story that. I have a whole CD of dog songs. There's always somebody at one of my shows says, "Hey, you do any cat songs?" And I go, "Well, not really. I'm a dog person." They go, "Well, how come you don't do any cat songs?" So I finally had somebody say that, and I said, I'm going to do a cat song, but I'm going to do it from the dog's point of view. So I thought about that. So I Googled major differences between dogs and cats, and I found out that how long a cat's memory is?
No.
You know how long a dog's memory is?
No.
A dog's memory is 5 minutes, apparently. A cat's memory is 16 hours.
Oh, hang on to those resentments.
There you go. Exactly. So that's what I love about dogs. Boom, it's okay. Oh, I'm so glad to see you.
Tell me about the writing of She Loves My Dog More Than Me.
Well, it's a kind of a true story in a way. I mean, my wife and I have two beautiful golden retrievers back in California, Harlow and Hepburn. And Harlow is the mother. And Hepburn came into this world along with a litter of 8 beautiful golden retriever puppies. We kept one, named her Hepburn, and ever since Hepburn came into this world, my wife seems to have fallen in love with her, and they spend a lot of time on the bed together. And so I look and I see the two of them on the bed together, and of course Hepburn's in my place. And so I said to my wife one day, and half in jest, I said, you know, I think you love the dog more than me. I was just kidding. And she didn't say anything. I went,
Whoops.
Yeah, whoops. And I thought, well, need to write a song about that, because that's a nice thing about being a songwriter. You always get the last word. So I came up, obviously there's a lot of poetic license in it. It came from that moment. That's what I love about songwriting. You can take any moment, you can take anything, whether it's funny or serious, and you can frame it. Frame that moment, frame what's going on. And it's amazing how many people can relate to that song. So
Freebo, and here is the song about his sober dogs. She Loves My Dog More Than Me.
Once upon a time, everything was so fine, cozy, just my baby and me. I was so well fed, had my breakfast in bed. I was happy as a man can be. Then my buddy called up, had the cutest little pup. I couldn't help but take him in. Little did I know her affection would go to my new little four-legged friend. Now she loved my dog more than me. She loved my dog more than me. I love my dog. She loved my dog, but she loved my dog more than me. We were lying by the fire, burning with desire, when suddenly, to my chagrin, as the fire got to stoking, came a cold nose a poking, somewhere it should not have been. I thought she'd shoo him away, but she told him to stay. It kinda took me out of the zone. Now a man's best friend gets a girl in the end, and I'm left holding the bone. 'Cause she loved my dog more than me. She loved my dog more than me. I love my dog. She loved my dog, but she loved my dog more than me. So I'm sitting here fuming while he's getting all the grooming. That ain't how it's supposed to be. Well, you know I don't hate him, but he got an ultimatum. Baby, it's the dog or me. Well, I got a reply as she led me outside, and she handed me my people chow. Now I'm howling at the moon while he's up in my room, and I'm in the doghouse now. Sing it with me. She loved my dog more than me. She loved my dog more than me. I love my dog. She loved my dog, but she loved my dog more than me. There's a moral to the story. When you fall from the glory, you gotta do it gracefully. So I'm back in the bed with the dog at the head. We're a nuclear family, and I accept my fate. You know this little debate, because this ain't no democracy. From the moment it came, it been a doggone shame that she loved my dog more than me. Sing it, 3, 4. She loved my dog more than me. She loved my dog more than me. I love my dog. She loved my dog.
Freebo with a great song, a very funny song, a very entertaining song. She loves my dog more than me. Hmm.
It's true.
I want to wrap up this segment and ask you about service.
Well,
That's a big thing for you.
yeah, yeah. And service can be in so many different ways. It can be as, somebody's sponsor in a program of some sort, but, it can also be, I've got a song on the CD. It's called When There's No Place Like Home. And in that song, I become the homeless person. Sometimes an interesting way to write a song is in the first person. Now, I've never been homeless. I hope never to be, but I've got tremendous empathy, really, for the people who are there, because I can imagine what that feels like. Even though I've never been there, I know the feeling of being alone. I know the feeling of being desperate. And there's a line in that song in the bridge says, "Please don't look right past me. A simple smile could help me make it through." That's being a service. So if I can look at a homeless person, "Hey man, how you doing?" Whether I give them a buck or not, it's the acknowledgement that they exist. That's being a service. Having a real conversation with somebody, being involved in somebody else's pain, without taking it on yourself, being there for other people. I think that's being a service, and ultimately being there for yourself. And you can't be there for anybody else unless you're there for yourself. It's the classic metaphor of the oxygen mask coming down on the airplane and put it over your face before you put it over your kid's face, which is a great metaphor. I love it. I enjoy being a service, and again, it's giving, and when you give, it just plain feels good. The wonderful universal truism, like I said, is you do wind up receiving.
Freebo joining us, a guy that is heart deep in gratitude, and I appreciate you
Thank you.
sharing your story, sharing your music. You can find out more about Freebo and get his music. It's wonderful. At his website, which is
Freebomusic.com, Freebo, freebomusic.com.
great to see you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with Freebo, which was done a number of years ago. Today, Freebo's over 30 years happy, sober, and free. Check out his music at freebomusic.com. And by the way, I want to remind listeners of this podcast that if you would like to tell your story of recovery, regardless of the path that you've chosen, as long as you've been in continuous recovery for at least a year or more, drop us a note at recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. We're going to hear from a guy I did an alcoholism telethon with in Santa Barbara back in the 1970s, a person in long-term recovery, and an American treasure, Dick Van Dyke. We'll do that in 30 seconds.
She has always been your baby, but when your daughter got into drugs and alcohol, she turned into a stranger. What do you do? Where do you turn? Contact Sundown M Ranch. Sundown's nationally recognized youth treatment program guides young people back to a life free of drugs and alcohol. All treatment is gender specific and directed by caring certified professionals in a safe environment. You can get your daughter back and get to know her again. Go to www.sundown.org to learn more.
And now, as promised, here's actor Dick Van Dyke reflecting on, putting recovery first.
The true motives of our actions, like the real pipes of an organ, are usually concealed, but the gilded and hollow pretext is pompously placed in the front for show. Charles Caleb Colton. Some of us have made many unsuccessful attempts to give up drinking, drugs, overeating, gambling. We tried hard to quit, but always ended up going back to our addictions. Our primary reason is that our motives for stopping were misdirected. We quit drinking because the doctor or judge told us we'd better quit. We stopped using drugs because we were afraid our boss or co-workers suspected something. We abstained from overeating to make ourselves more attractive to our spouse. We tried to quit gambling because we were on the verge of losing our family. All the while, we harbored secret reservations about staying stopped. We weren't yet completely willing to do whatever was necessary to stay clean and sober and abstinent. Our real motive was to get off the hook or back in someone's good graces. All that has changed. We've learned from our own experience, as well as the experience of others, that we can't successfully give up our addictions by trying to do so for somebody else. Today, there's no question in our minds that if we expect to have successful recoveries, freedom from dependency has to be our #1 priority for ourselves. Thought for today? You forsake lasting recovery if you try to quit for someone else's sake.
Well, that wraps up this edition of the National Podcast Recovery Coast to Coast. If you've enjoyed our podcast, I invite you and would ask that you please share it with others, especially via social media or simply by telling someone about it. You can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our email is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. Also, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free, and you'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. Remember, if you know someone who's experiencing problems with alcohol or any other drug, here's a 24-hour national helpline which offers free information and confidential treatment referrals. Spanish-speaking individuals are available as well. The number is 1-800-622-HELP. And join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. And another shout out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins. Sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. And don't blame distractions. Instead, improve your focus. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.